Welcome back to The Whole Home and another what we ate in a week. But this time it is everything I fed my kids in a week when they were home on school holidays. If you're new here, hi, welcome. I'm Kezia. This is my little real life kitchen. And my goal on the internet is to make lower footprint, sustainable family living feel a little less complicated and a bit more budget friendly. And food budgeting is such a big part of that. So I love to do these videos to show how a lower than average budget actually translates to meals in a week or feeding kids and what that practically looks like. Honestly, most of the time we all eat the same thing. So what they ate is what we eat, but I thought I would just track their week with what they ate while they were at home. In terms of how we eat as a family and our budget, our monthly budget for everything we eat and drink in and out of the house is £500, which is not a lot. That is lower than the UK average for our family size and age. So it takes a lot to make it work. I swear by meal planning, and I did not really meal plan for this week, you're going to see, but it's a very real life week. I feel like I was not organized, but because it was the school holidays, there was a little bit more wiggle room in terms of popping to the shops in extra time or a bit more prep time, or the kids could do a task. In terms of what we eat, our goal is as simple, unprocessed food as we can when we're at home. Then if we're out at a party or with other people, we don't really sweat what the kids are eating. But at home, as unprocessed as possible, it also really helps with the budget. That is, I think, a cheaper way to eat in our experience. And then we are trying to be as thoughtful about what we eat in terms of people and the planet as well. We are also not perfect. Budget is a limiting factor. Another thing that is specific to the way our kids eat is that we are not a snacking family. So you will see in this video, there are a couple of times when we have an afternoon snack. So we have like a fourth meal of the day that might be apples and peanut butter or something sweet or something planned in the afternoon. We all eat it together. It's intentional. So we'll do a snack. What we don't do is snacking. So like the kids coming and asking me for a snack. This was a week of the holiday. I didn't get asked for a snack once because it's just not what we do in our family, which really helps on the budget. It helps me stay sane. And it means that everyone comes to the table hungry and so a little bit more open to eating the food that we've made, which is often the more frugal food at a mealtime. So you'll see how that works. But there are not snacks in between this. The kids are not coming and asking for snacks. And on the go, we're not taking snacks. We don't kind of build snacking into our meal plan, our shop, or the way that we eat. They know that, we know that, and I love it, and our budget loves it too. So there are some of the parameters, but let's dive into what I fed my kids in a slightly lazy, unplanned week of eating on a budget. We started our week, this is Monday morning, and we are having some waffles. This is a much slower Monday because it's the school holidays. My husband is working from home, so there is more time today. Breakfasts on our meal plans are usually waffles or pancakes, then toast. Sometimes we'll do oatmeal or a granola that we make, and then occasionally we will buy cereal too. But those are really all that we rotate between for breakfast. It keeps life simple. And then we're adding all kinds of nut butters, honey, jam, yogurt. This is a simple chocolate sauce that my daughter is stirring up, made from coconut oil, honey, and some fair trade cocoa. Later in the morning, a friend and her child dropped by. They brought some sliced watermelon with them, so I added some oranges and all the kids ate those before lunch, which was the last of some chicken noodle soup that we had made over the weekend. This is a family favorite, really frugal because we make it from chicken carcasses, so it is one of the main things we will do when we do eat meat. When the kids are home, they will always do an hour of quiet time in the afternoon. It used to be a nap when they were smaller. Now it's just a quiet time hour. And after that, we had this snack plate, apples, peanut butter, and then we'd had a leftover cinnamon bun pastry from the weekend. So we sliced that up, and this was their snack in between lunch and dinner. I usually shop on a Tuesday night and we start the new meal plan on a Wednesday. So by Monday night, Tuesday, we're looking at what we have left, making sure we're using up all the leftovers and reassessing what food we have to make sure that we're being diligent and not wasting anything, because that is a massive money saver. So tonight we are pulling together some leftover pizza dough that we had from the weekend. We just threw the dough into the fridge and then making a cabbage slaw. That's just one of the easiest ways to get vegetables into my kids. They love a vegetable slaw with a dressing made from mayonnaise, some vinegar, or I use older kombucha that we brew, and then salt and maybe some smoked paprika. Makes a delicious slaw. And then we did the remainder of the pizza dough, made a quick pizza, and that was an easy Monday night dinner. It is spring and we have a lot of greens in the garden, and normally I will pick some greens, some nettles or some rocket and throw them on top of pizza, but honestly I couldn't be bothered, and so this is what dinner ended up being. I knew I could easily have got more veggies into my kids, but I just didn't feel like walking outside. We finished the night with a little bit of food prep, making some bread. I let my sourdough starter die. I've got to revamp it so it's quick yeast bread, and then putting some fruit into the kombucha for a second ferment so it gets nice and bubbly. Breakfast on day 2 was that whole wheat bread and then Weetabix. You can see I still have my FROWNIES on my head. I will note what those are below, but this is very real life as it happens. My kids have a weird way of eating Weetabix. They don't like it going soggy, so they pour a glass of milk, put the Weetabix in a bowl, and then dunk the Weetabix as they eat. Lunch on this final day of the meal plan was baked beans. We had a couple of cans in the cupboard. I usually will buy those every week to just have an easy meal that we can turn to if plans change and we need something protein packed and easy. And then we had another cabbage, so I did another simple cabbage slaw, the same as yesterday, and then did toast and eggs. Most of our eggs come from some backyard ducks that we have. We lost a few to the fox and we now have 3 girls, which lands us about 20 eggs a week. Sometimes less, and sometimes that works great, sometimes it's not enough. This week we did also buy some eggs, but today's eggs are all from our ducks, and they're actually very, very similar. We can't tell the difference between these and chicken eggs, so everyone eats them fine. However, they are prepared, and that was lunch. Before their quiet time, I mixed up some peanut butter Easter eggs with the girls. They're really just little peanut butter freezer treats, kind of like a Reese's idea, but we called them Easter eggs because this was the Easter holidays, so we just mixed, I'll note the recipe below, peanut butter, coconut oil, some oat flour, put those in the freezer, and then dunked them in a kind of homemade chocolate, coconut oil, honey, cocoa, and put them back in the freezer so that they could have those when they were done with their quiet time hour. This was today's afternoon snack. I think I wore the same clothes so many days this week. Real life. The kids were home. We were out in the garden doing a lot of gardening and planting spring seeds, and so we just were wearing the same gardening clothes for the first few days of this week. So there we are, real life. And dinner on this night was some quick homemade pasta. I do not usually make pasta, but it's a great thing to be able to pull together. Often, because we buy bulk flour and we have ducks, at the end of the meal plan, we do have flour and eggs, and this is really easy to make. You just combine a couple of cups of flour, 2 cups, and 2 eggs, and then enough milk or water to pull it together and salt. Roll it into a ball, and then you can see we roll it out on a well-floured surface, cut it with the pizza cutter, and boil it just for a couple of minutes, and you've got some great pasta noodles. Then I sent my daughter outside to grab some greens.
So I am going to pick some rocket for our meal today with noodles and carrots. And here are our ducks. I filled it up like quarter. Moving to our next rocket patch. I have filled it up with all the rocket.
Thank you. Rocket is one of my favorite things to grow because it grows so easily like a weed. You can eat it raw, you can throw it in things, the kids will just grab it from the garden, and you can grow a lot in quite a small space. So that was dinner. On day 3, we circled back to waffles because I had not prepped ahead and made bread. We were just rolling with it, and we had eggs and flour. So that is really all you need for waffles, with some honey, butter, and baking powder. So that was breakfast, and then our veg box arrived. So we're starting to get some fresh food in the house again for the next week. We do integrate a veg box into most weeks. We really value the lower waste, the transparency, the way they treat farmers and producers, but it is more expensive than doing supermarket produce. This is where we get the chicken carcasses, which is a massive money saver that you can't get at the supermarket. But for us, it's about balancing budget with values and then doing just really good meal planning and wasting nothing so that it all fits into the money we have to spend. Before we start the new food though, we are making sure we are clearing out the rest. So we've got a few leftover baked beans from lunch, the leftover cheesy carrot rocket noodles, and the final bit of that slaw. We finished lunch with fruit from the veg box, and even though it's out on the counter, the kids don't just grab fruit whenever they want. We do tend to integrate it into meals, and obviously kids snacking on fruit is a great thing, so much better than other things, but we just don't really snack at all, which means we can actually plan ahead. And I see so many people say, we bought strawberries and then they were all gone by the next day. And I feel completely okay letting the kids know, hey, we've bought this for a week, and so there are certain things for certain days, and they get to weigh in on what they want the meal plan to be. But then it isn't just everyone has free reign in the kitchen, because we cannot plan and budget for a family that way. So there will always be something to eat, but it might just not be fruit whenever they want it. We had the Easter eggs and then also some jelly babies later in the day randomly, because my daughter informed us that when my husband was done with work, we would be doing a talent show. So everyone had to bring a talent. And then the winners got a jelly baby. They were from our local bulk shop and they had just been in the cupboard for a while. So a few of us, the winners, had one of those before supper. I don't know how those cans of beans have lived on. They clearly weren't everyone's favorite this week, but that is the last scoop of baked beans and I am getting it eaten for dinner. It won't feed everyone, but we do make sure that even if there's the tiniest bit, it goes on someone's plate so nothing just gets thrown out because it's a tiny leftover bit. Then we had these veggie burgers left in the freezer. They were on clearance a few weeks back and I bought so many for next to no money. They've actually been really loved by everyone though. Then some potatoes and eggs, and that was our dinner. You can see here, these eggs were from the shops. They were actually on sale, so I thought, well, even though we have ducks, that's great, more frugal protein that we can integrate. We are eating on the coffee table here, you can see, because there is a giant game of Monopoly laid out on the kitchen table that no one wanted to move. This day finally got us out of our gardening clothes. I was speaking at an event in London, so we grabbed toast and cereal quickly for breakfast, and then to stop us buying food on the go, I made a massive frittata with about a dozen eggs, potatoes, tomatoes, cottage cheese, so much in there, and we cooked it up, and that was everyone's lunch. Just take a slice, eat that for lunch. We got back way later than we thought though, so we did end up grabbing Co-op yellow sticker items for dinner, which is one of actually my kids' favorite things to do, and we spent about £7 on clearance sandwiches, bread, fruit, hummus, and carrots. We did start this day again with waffles because no one had been organised and made bread or granola or anything else, but when they're made with whole wheat flour and eggs and yogurt and topped with more yogurt and nut butters and maybe some chocolate sauce with a tiny bit of honey in it, I feel great starting the day that way. This is my daughter writing down the recipe because she wanted to be able to make waffles herself. We made a simple lunch and we're also prepping dinner here. I've got some beans soaking. Dinner is going to be beans and rice, which is one that the whole family loves and we do probably once a week, every week in some form. Lunch though is pesto pasta, store-bought pesto, store-bought pasta. And then we're going to put a carrot slaw on the side. And then into the pesto, we love adding nettles. Nettles grow very easily here. They're really a weed, but they're also a very nutritious edible plant. And so when they're not flowering, you don't want to eat them when they're flowering, but when they are not flowering, we add them to a lot of things for a free foraged, very budget-friendly green. They're also a great one to forage because they are very easy to identify. There's nothing really that you can mistake them for. And if you want to be sure, just touch them. And if they sting you, you know you've got the right thing. But the top and the bottom of the leaf don't sting. So you can see I'm avoiding those jagged edges and just picking the leaves off. They're not like a lot of forageable greens in being bitter. They've actually got a slightly sweet, nutty taste, which I think makes them really easy to add to things. And once you either blend them into a pesto or heat them, they lose their sting and they just become a yummy, nutty, very nutritious, free addition. This was the first time I have ever stung my mouth on a stinging nettle, which just felt a little bit tingly, but I did not cook them enough. They need to just go in some boiling water, but I was lazy and I didn't do that. I just threw them into the pasta and then tasted it before they had heated enough. So just make sure they are popped into some boiling water or thoroughly blended and you should be fine. Because we're not quite getting enough eggs, we have hatched and raised some ducklings over the last few weeks. And one thing we bought in our food shop was for them, not us, and they go wild for these peas. Look at them, they can see them. They're pecking the glass dish and then they are crazy when they get those peas. They love them. So hopefully 3 or 4 of those will be girls, and in a few months we will have some more eggs. No one had any kind of afternoon snack today, but I started dinner off with some apples and peanut butter while I finished making the meal. And then dinner was really simple rice and bean bowls. We get dry beans from our local bulk shop and cook them with some tomato, cumin, smoked paprika, salt, some ketchup sometimes, and cook them down. And that is a family frugal favorite. Day 6 is Saturday, and after being on holiday, we are up for an early start with football. The kids can make pancakes fully themselves, which I love. So they made pancakes this morning, and then we made extra to take to football. While we don't snack, if the kids are doing sports and need food to keep them going through hours of matches, obviously we take food on the go for something like that. So the kids flipped pancakes, played with the ducklings, and then we loaded up pancakes to go. This is also so much cheaper than doing packaged snacks and things to go, just pancakes, peanut butter and jam, and it's football time. This was the day that we finally made some bread. We're making a easy cheat focaccia style bread here, just a regular yeast bread, and then cooked with butter or oil like this. I'm using a vegan butter here. Everyone in the family, bar the 3-year-old, can make this bread, so it's something we take it in turns doing, and I love bringing the kids in too. We could easily buy our bread from the shops, but it saves a ton of money to make all our bread products from home, and then we can choose our ingredients and make it more sustainable and more nutritionally dense than what we could buy at the shops for the same amount of money. So we buy bulk, locally grown flour in paper bags. Buying it in bulk brings the cost down a bit, and then there's no plastic packaging. We can use only the ingredients we want, so typically it is just organic whole wheat flour, salt and water, and then yeast if it's not a sourdough bread. Today we've made a blended curried squash soup, and we're eating that alongside the bread. It was so sunny, so we took it outside and had a gorgeous picnic lunch outdoors. My son then remembered that we did have 2 chalk ices left in the freezer, so we cut those up at the end of lunch. This is what happens when you don't meal plan, which we did not do well this week. I just made bread for lunch, and now my husband is making pizza dough for dinner, the same dough. We could have done it once instead of twice, which is why for the most part, like 50 weeks of the year, I rigorously plan, and this is one of the ones where we just didn't. And it costs you in time, which is why it is so important to me, because it makes cooking from scratch and making healthy, simple, frugal meals so much more possible if we plan well. Pizza is a Saturday evening tradition, and I love keeping the meal plan simple with some regular meals that we always have. The kids love Saturday evening pizza, and we usually use it as our kind of date night as well. Today we loaded it up with little rocket leaves. It's all beginning to come up in the garden, so we picked those and put them straight on the pizza outside. I then used half of the pizza dough to make a kind of babka style chocolate cinnamon bread for the morning, because we were getting up very early. This was Easter Day, and I love an adventure with the kids, so we decided to walk to the top of a local hill for the sunrise. So I grabbed the bread and we ate that as we walked, and then we took the remainder back to my parents, where they did a really lovely Easter brunch for us. On Easter bank holiday Monday, we always do a bring and share big meal with my wider family. So one of our things we're bringing and sharing is this blueberry orange cake. We've bought frozen blueberries in our shop this week, and then we're just doing a simple orange sponge. We use the same simple formula for all our cakes, and I will note that below. Also, with the blueberries, we're going to make some smoothies to get everyone through to dinner after a weird brunch lunch time that left everyone kind of hungry in the afternoon. So we're throwing in some frozen blueberries. Those were part of this week's shop, with some yogurt, milk, and peanut butter. I keep a pretty minimal kitchen, but that blender is one of my favorite kitchen items. It whisks. It's an immersion blender, which I use for the soup, and it also works really well for smoothies. I will link it below. I don't link many things, but that is one of my favorite things because it's a multitasker in a minimal kitchen. Then dinner was just a repeat of last night. We do a lot of cooking once and eating multiple times from what we've cooked to save on prep time. And so we did pizza and rocket with a big family game of Monopoly. One of my kids is eating so much at the moment, and so after all the pizza was gone, they still wanted more food, and they had some leftover curried squash soup until they were full. I think probably because we don't snack in between meals, the kids do eat a lot at meal times, which I love it that way. It means that they are filling up on more nutritionally dense and more frugal foods rather than on snack foods. But we make sure that we have them sit at the table and that we take enough time for them to actually eat everything that they need, rather than rushing or letting them get down from the table. And sometimes I think they then stop eating before they've actually had enough to eat. This is actually day 8, the final day before they're back to school, and we're starting it with granola and Weetabix, and then we took the sausages, bread, and our blueberry orange cake to our family day. And that is a wrap on a week of feeding our kids during the holiday. Normally we have some school lunches thrown in the mix, and we have a lot better meal planning, but that is what a very real life budget, real food week looks like in our home. If you have any questions, please leave them below and I will answer them. If you want to chat snacking or any of the recipes or anything like that, pop those in the comments. And if you want to see more what we ate in a week videos for the whole family, you can see that playlist here. And if you want some tips for how we decrease stress at the end of the month when we're trying to get to the last day and hit that budget number, you can see those general tips, which are good for the whole month, and video here. And of course, there is a subscribe button. You can hit that for more videos like this each week. And I will see you in another video sometime soon. Thanks for joining.